Men, and as usual, I use the term loosely. Welcome back to part 2 of rebuilding this carburetor. Thanks for coming back. Okay, I'm back. A whole case of carb cleaner, air hose, little, toothbrush kind of cleaning devices, all the nooks and crannies scrubbed out, carb cleaner blew it all out. This thing is ready to go back together again. There was a few little bits of machining operations. This hole was tapped out for this fitting, which is going to be the fuel inlet. I just got to screw it in there finger tight so I don't lose it. This hole over here, into which this extra vacuum fitting was squeezed in. I pulled this out with a pair of vice grips. Drilled, well, I didn't have to drill, but tapped this hole for a 1224 screw. Slobbered screw up with a little bit of Loctite 518. Loctite 518, my favorite sealant. And put a screw in there so this won't leak. I just don't like having extra things that I'm not using. This one, I just don't want to take this out. I'm a little scared to mess with this one, so I'm just going to put a cap on it. But anyway, this carb is ready to go back together again. So let's put the float in. And as it happened to turn out, this owner provided me with several different rebuild kits for these carbs. And there happened to be a rebuild kit that was the right one in there. And it had a brand new needle on it. And although the needle that was in there looked like it was brand new, I could see no evidence of where I decided to use the one that was from the sealed bag. The the nipple part is more subtle, and I think it'll seal better. So you just drop that back in there. Here's the shaft. The shaft I polished up with a little bit of 1500 grit sandpaper. Put the screw in. I've never seen one of these screws come out. I don't use any Loctite on them or anything. I've never had a problem with them coming on. I never saw one that fell out. The Harley manual sets the float height, and I've always been a little confused by this. The float height is supposed to be 0.63 inches from this surface to the top of this surface with the needle valve fully closed. Well, okay, and they show a picture of it installed in this orientation and a guy measuring it like this. Okay, I get that. But the verbiage says fully closed, and this is the picture they show. Well, there's a spring-loaded plunger in the needle, so is this fully closed, or when the plunger is compressed like this, is that fully closed? I usually do it like this with it just hanging, and this one is damn close. I don't think I'm going to screw with it. Let me check it from my angle. Well, it might be a touch too high. I'm going to try to add a little bit to it here. So let's see. I want to bend this thing out this way. And this is a very touchy adjustment. Bending that little flange in there, it wants to go back to where it was. The metal has some memory. It could be touchy. I'm going to try to move it just a little bit more. I'm going to call that good. The book says 0.63 to 0.67. It looks to me like it's at about 0.65, so I'm going to call that good to go. All right, so the float's in. Oh, let's put in the emulsion tube. And just FYI, I took those other carbs apart. The first one I took apart, I couldn't get the tube out. The second one, I got the tube out, but it was different than the one that came out of the carb. This one has 12 holes. It has 4 rows of 3. The second one I took out had 4 rows of 2, so it's not the same. So finally I got around to the third carb, took the tube out. It was in excellent condition and it had the right number of holes in it. So we're going to go with that one, and we're going to tap it down all the way. It's a little bit of a press fit. I got my small carburetor tapping hammer. Okay, and you could eyeball it, you know, down the carb through. It looks like it's probably about the right. So let's jam the jet in. And I also snatched, this is a 165 jet. What was in there was 165, but I snatched this out of the same carb that the emulsion tube came out of because the jet was in better shape. I like jets to have nice square edges on the screw slot that are not all chowdered up from the screwdriver slipping like I just did, as much as possible, because I think that affects the fuel flow through the hole. I also snatched another low speed out of the same carb that I got the emulsion tube and the other jet out of, because it was in better, cleaner shape, and it's a different size. It's a 62. I don't know whether that'll work or not. We'll just have to try it and see. And as you recall, when I took this apart, the guy had a little O-ring under the low-speed jet. No O-ring under the jet. The jet is brass on brass sealing. The carb kit had a new rubber plug in it. The rubber's a lot more supple than the one that came out of there, so I went ahead and used that. So float is in, it's adjusted, needles are in. Let's see, that's in. We got this hole sealed up. Okay, this half of the carb is done. Okay, float bowl. This float bowl I also snatched off of one of the other carbs because it was far less corroded on the inside. The accelerator pump diaphragm that came out of this carb looked like it was brand new, looked like it was in brand new condition. But in one of the rebuild kits was a new one in a sealed package and a new spring, so I'm using those. Just because they were new and sealed, the rubber's just a lot softer, so yeah, you know, I think it'll be better. 2 new O-rings in there, and we'll pop these bad boys on there and see what happens. Ooh, you know, let's go back to the carb body for a minute. This is the idle mixture needle, and I just want to show you a couple things. There is a little rubber O-ring. The O-ring seals this shaft from the bore that the shaft goes in. The O-ring goes on first. Next goes the little steel washer. The little steel washer prevents the spring, which goes on last, from chewing up the O-ring. So that's your stack up: O-ring, steel washer, spring. Let's drop that in the hole. I'm going to bottom it out. Bottomed out, I'm going to back it out 2 turns just as a starting point. That's 1/2. That's 1. That's 1 and 1/2. That's 2. And just FYI, this bike, I'm sure, had the little Welch plug in here that sealed this adjustment off so you couldn't make it. You could drill a hole through the middle of that, stick a sheet metal screw in there and pop it out, or what some guys do is get a Dremel tool and a cutoff wheel and just cut off the end of this. the end of this tower. It doesn't need to be there. But anyway, that's how you get to the adjustment screw. Okay, moving back to the bowl. The diaphragm is in, the spring is in, and we're going to test this thing with some WD-40. Oh, you know what? Before we do that, I'm going to hold this up to the camera microphone. I want you to listen. Okay, listen. You hear that rattling around in there? That rattling around in there is the accelerator pump check valve. And the accelerator check valve is this little bastard right here. When you take the nozzle out, and you can do that with a pair of vice grips, just twist it, pull it, it'll come out. That thing should fall out. If that thing gets corroded in there and it doesn't move, one of two things will happen. Your accelerator pump won't pump, or if it pumps, it can always have gas being sucked out of the little hole over here, and you will always have too rich of a mixture. So do the rattle check. Make sure you can hear that thing moving around in there, and you know your accelerator pump is probably okay. Anyway, I put it together this far, and I like to test them with WD-40. And what I do is I just fill up this bottom corner of the float bowl, and I take my needle and stick it in there, or not my needle, my accelerator pump rod, and just push it. And this one right now is not working. Huh. Let me put a little more in there. I don't know if I got the pickup hole covered all the way. Oh, there we go. It's making suck noises. There we go, it's starting to pump. Put a little more in there. Alright, good, right into my Pepsi. Great. Takes more in there than you think it would. Okay, you should be able to see that. Takes a lot more than you think it would. There we go. Okay. Alright, so it works. It works good. Enough of that because it's getting all messy now. WD-40 don't hurt the carb at all. Doesn't hurt Pepsi either. Still good. Alright, so accelerator pump is in, it works. That's in, it works. Got a new gasket. There are many flavors of this gasket floating around too. These key-ins are not nearly all the same. They're basically the same, but a lot of little differences on them. Alright, a little grease did the trick. Alright. All right, a few final notes on these carburetors. You know, guys want me to work on these things. And, you know, I don't know, it's probably going to end up being a 20-30 minute video. In reality, there's probably 4 or 5 hours of dicking around with this thing at the shop labor rate. Plus, it's got to be installed on a bike. Plus, you know, the jets may have to be changed. You know, it's got to be driven, it's got to be tuned. And I often tell guys, do yourself a favor, buy a new carburetor. I got, you know, 3, 4, 5 hours in this thing right now, another couple of 3 hours sticking around with it on the bike, and boom, you're right at the cost of what a new carb is going to be. Carburetor is something that is owner equity, man. You want to mess with one of these old things, feel free, knock yourself out. Rarely is it cost effective to take it to a shop and ask them to fuck with it. You know, a guy could screw with this thing for, you know, 2, 3, 4, 5 hours, put it on a bike, it'll run shitty, he'll change jets, he'll adjust it, he'll do all kinds of shit to it, blow another couple of 2 or 3 hours in it, and you're at the cost of a new car. Personally, myself, I highly recommend Bendix carbs with the adjustable main jet. Most of the time when I buy one of those, put them on a bike, I don't even have to adjust them. They're pretty close right out of the box. You know, these things, I think they reach a point where no matter what you do to them, they just won't work right. You know, whether the flow of air over the course of years, the flow of air and fuel erodes passageways, I don't know. All I know is they get old and they don't work. A couple of other final notes on them is when you go to install these things, make sure the insulator block is there. The insulator block prevents the heat from the cylinder head from getting soaked into the carb, where it will boil your fuel and cause vapor lock and all kinds of nasty shit. Make sure the insulator block is intact and install the insulator block. It needs to be there. Don't leave it out. Don't leave it out. Anyway, that's the end of this project. This thing is as good as I could get it. What's going to happen is I'm going to put it on the bike. The bike will either run right or it won't. I'll try maybe 1 or 2 adjustments on it. If it works, great. If not, I'm going to call the owner and say, hey, I just wasted 6 hours screwing around with this thing. Buy a new carburetor. You know, I don't want to spend another 6 hours of your money on it and not have any guarantee of success. The old carburetors, the owner's given me permission to sell those on eBay. I'm going to throw all 4 of them in a box along with a handful of extra parts. I got extra parts in here, I got extra parts over there, and I'm going to sell them as parts carbs. So if you must torture yourself by working on these old carbs, hey, buy some parts. Buy a box of carbs and car parts. Anyway, one other thing, a shout out to a subscriber, Blair. He called me the other day, had a couple of questions about these things. I knew I had to get 1 out of this batch of 5 sorted out for this project bike. So, hey Blair, thanks for getting me motivated. I don't know, maybe you watched the video, maybe this will help you out, maybe it won't, I don't know. But anyway, good luck to you on your project. In the meantime, for the rest of you guys, I am out of here. Y'all have a good day. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe.